I'll call the meeting to order.
There were 8 or 9 up here, right?
In a few minutes. We're just waiting for Karen, and she kind of runs the show with the budget presentations, and we'll probably go with those at the very beginning and then work our way into the warrant articles. The other thing is, I just want to let you all know that tomorrow's meeting with the school has been canceled. There you go, I know. So it will be the first 3 Wednesdays in December instead, okay? They said that they weren't close to completing the budget and they didn't want to present it until they had it in order, yeah. So tomorrow's meeting has been rescheduled to the, what day is that? Is that the 4th or the 3rd, something like that? Let me tell you exactly so you can write it down. The 4th. All right, I should be able to find it. Okay, it will be December 4th, December 11th, December 18th, 4 to 6, all at the SAU office, the conference room. And Steve isn't here tonight. His mother's younger sister passed away, and he's attending the funeral in Washington, D.C., so he will be back tomorrow, but he cannot attend tonight, obviously. Later on, when Karen is here, she's going to be arriving any minute now, we'll kind of go over some of the, look at the agendas for some of our future meetings. One of the things that we have to do, or I'm sure you would like to do, during the summer, there was a committee that met every Thursday for several hours, and we went over some areas of the school budget. And we came up with quite a lengthy report on budget comparisons with schools that were similar in size and similar in structure, because everyone has always said, why is the school budget so expensive? Why? Because we have one of the highest costs per pupil cost in the state. So we basically dug in and did our research, and the final report has just been finalized and released by the SAU's legal counsel today. And I'm sure that everyone wants to listen to it, but I'm not sure when they're going to present it. I don't know if you want to hear that report, and if you know, whether we do it on one of these nights or if you come to a school budget meeting. I have no idea. Mel Brooks is the one that's trying to coordinate the presentation. So if you have any brothers, just let me know if you want to do it on one of these nights. It should probably take, I would say, 30 to 45 minutes to go over it. And hopefully we'll get you the report prior so you can read it. But we were just waiting for its release from legal counsel, and it happened today. So tonight we're going to go over the budgets for the library, opera house, executive, patriotic purposes, conservation commission, and planning and zoning. And Karen was going to, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm going to pass these out.
Yeah. Here she comes. Oh, good. Hi. Hello. Okay. Thank you very much. Anxious to get that. I didn't know if Sophia was here yet. I don't see her.
Rudy.
Okay, Karen, let you get settled in a little bit. Who do you want to present first?
I don't mind going a little bit later. I'm going to represent for the Opera House. if Sue wasn't here. If Sue was here, we were gonna ask for her to go first because of some of her accident. So, at this point, I would say the library can go first.
Where you want me?
And that's on page, well, the third page of the pamphlet,
Yes.
one of one. Hi Megan, welcome.
Thank you. Okay. So hi, I'm Megan Carr, and I'm the director of Littleton Public Library. Yeah.
And this is John Schultz and then Shane Altieri on the end. There are no members.
Wonderful.
I think you met Dan last year.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a few members missing tonight. so
Oh, okay.
I was looking to see, and Jim's coming in late, and yeah, it's,
Yeah.
Do you want me just to kind of go over what I put together and then you can answer questions, or do you want to go over it yourself?
Either way is fine by me.
Okay.
Um,
I'll do just a quick run
Yeah.
through. So the 2020 default is exactly the same as the 2019 approved, so there are no differences there. The 2020 proposed, the revenues are exactly the same as the 2019 approved. And then the expenditures, permanent positions, we have a 3% increase calculated into that. There's the 2.2% increase in health insurance. There's a decrease under workers' compensation. A 3% increase into the property liability. A $100 increase in general supplies. $500 increase into audio-visual. $250 increase in programs. $500 increase in electric and water. Very small $34 increase in sewer. So the total expenditures in the 2020 proposed is $324,759. That's $6,166 more than in 2019. It's a 1.94% increase. The offsetting revenues are $36,500. The amount for the total appropriation on the tax rate for the 2020 proposed is $288,259. Again, it's $6,122. Excuse me, $6,166 more than 2019. And for some reason, it comes up 2.19. And I got to recalculate where that's coming from. But it should be the 1.94%.
So all employees are covered under this 3%. I mean, you have no employee that would not be covered under this.
There's no union.
We don't have
No
to.
unions, right.
Yeah.
I just want to point that out to everybody, so.
So
How many-
the final
How many permanent positions do you have?
set.
7?
Yeah. So 4 full, 3 part.
We have a lot of, a good volunteer base.
We have a really large, a really solid volunteer base, which is really wonderful. It helps keep things.
Really been
Yeah.
help, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Question about the revenues.
Mhm.
I see that you're anticipating the same revenues, but year-to-date, it's low compared to what was budgeted. And are you coming up to some high revenue time period, or?
No, so what I do usually at the end is, because there's trust funds, like if you've looked at the trustee of trust reports that you get, we have some that are for books and for care of the building. And if we need to tap into those, we sort of wait and see if we need to, if they're necessary.
So, okay, let's go back to that.
So to balance
your
it.
revenues?
Yeah, so if we go, I mean, we have to use some of it, but it's sort of figuring how much you have to use.
Yeah, so your
Depends on-
budget's anticipating 10,000.
Yeah,
And if you need to take more out, more, you will to make it reach the budgeted revenues? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
So the 10,000 is standard every year?
yeah, so
basically.
those are all pretty standard.
And you're not anticipating any loss of revenue in other areas?
I would hope not.
Okay. I mean, I don't know, I mean, I'm going along what you're trying
Well,
to say.
what
no.
consists of, what does special events consist of? 'Cause
So
you
that's
won't-
the fundraising event, so that's what the Friends would give us through the gala and book sale.
Okay. you
So they have
anticipate-
their funds in a separate pot, and they have some projects that they're working on, but they haven't cut the checks for those projects yet.
So you do expect before the end of the year significantly more
Yeah.
revenues from that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it looks like that's where the bulk of your shortfall is.
Yeah.
We don't want to over-anticipate our revenues, you know.
Right, I just want to be realistic.
Right,
If
right.
you're not going to bring that in, we should be realistic about what we're budgeting going forward.
Totally understand that. Anything else that you want to share with us?
I mean, I guess we have a lot going on right now, so you'll notice the increases are where we are expecting, where we have seen increase in usage. So we would like a little bit more in our programming funds because we are putting on more programs and we probably cost more to put on more programs. As well as our audio visuals, that collection makes up something like 12% of our circulation, and we're not, you know, but remotely to match, you know, the circulation of that one. And we're looking for electricity increase because we are putting in a heat pump system, which actually should, it should be cheaper for the AC, but it's also going to provide some heating, so it might cause that to go up a little bit, heat to go down, but we don't know until that system goes live. And that is, of course, you know, half paid for out of grants, so we're aggressively pursuing grants for a lot of our bigger projects.
So are there any other building maintenance that is required this year? Any projects going on?
Not this year. We did complete a conditions assessment, so if anybody wants to read 200 pages of this is what the building looks like and this is what we need to do and here's our trajectory forward. This is sort of, you know, this was just a completed, we don't have the final bound pretty version, and we will have that circulating for anyone who's interested in seeing that and reading that. So we do have a plan for,
Plan.
yeah, and a better understanding of what the building needs, so rather than sort of, you know.
Was that done by an outside source?
Yes, so this was done by Shashik Turpin out of Laconia, and we've done and funded by the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance.
So that's coming up, and do you expect any other warrant articles to be brought forward?
So we do have on the list one $15,000 one to add to our capital improvement fund, because there obviously are, if you read this report, we do have things, you know, larger scale maintenance items. We're hoping to minimize any spikes to the tax rate by adding to that fund and then aggressively seeking LCHIP and use plate funds to compensate for the rest of that. But I'm going to be working with our building committee to figure out which of these items are LCHIP eligible, and then sort of
So what is LCHIP?
LCHIP is the land conservation.
Historic preservation.
Yeah, it's a historic preservation fund that the state manages, and they provide 50% towards various historic preservation projects in their historic buildings. And you can often loop in things that don't seem historic, so like obviously our windows are historic, we like to maintain those, but your building can't remain open and function as a historic building if your roof is leaking, so you can loop in some things that don't seem to the outset to be part of the preservation, you know, that you're modernizing.
How much do you have in this fund?
Right now we have 30,000.
So try to bring it up to 45,000?
Yeah. Yeah. So the heat pump stone grant will pull probably a little bit from there, and then also we have our field fund, which is for care and maintenance of our historic collection, which, you know, our historic fund is getting one of those units and our paintings count, you know.
So you can pull from other reserve accounts,
Yeah,
particular, okay,
yeah,
specified for particular reasons, okay.
yeah.
And the remainder of the funding is the USDA.
Yeah, so the USDA is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, on your book of replacement, I guess, budget, has that been about the same for the past 5 years or so? And are you experiencing any increased costs for replacing books?
Which line?
It's line 22.
22, oh, yeah, just our book. So that's just our general book line. Costs have been pretty static, which is nice, so we can purchase about the same, with the same amount of money. And we have discounts through our purchasing agencies, so that makes it, yeah. So you don't need to change that one as much. It seems to be, yeah,
Still getting the same thing.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Megan,
Mhm.
the heat pump system, are we using some of the current trust fund fees for that?
Probably
As
so.
imagine, so the $15,000 warrant article wouldn't really increase us to
45, it would knock us because it's,
Right.
yeah.
And you could use that
Yeah.
to leverage for matching funds for other grants.
Yeah, and that's the.
I mean, I don't know if you have that permission in that, can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was written pretty as a capital reserve fund for capital projects on the building. So we're hoping that we'll like be able to offset any of the things we need to do with grant funds so we don't have the total cost on the town, but some things we will just have to chip away at regardless. So,
It is what it is.
yeah.
Are there any other questions? Do you have any questions? Do you have anything else to add? Tell us. That's it?
Do you
I mean,
have
if you
any
want-
new programs coming up?
We don't have necessarily new ones, but Polar Pals is starting up soon, so if you have any first or second graders, please sign them up. It is one of our landmark programs that's distinctive really to us. It pairs first and second graders with older kids. We also are running, we did it last year and we're continuing it again, so Lakeway, you know how they do winter program? For the kids, the library was an option for them last year, and we're going to continue that again this year for the kids that don't want to do the outside things, basically. So it's a nice collaboration with them.
So Megan, just a curious question. People are still wanting to hold the book, huh?
Always, yes.
Yeah.
That doesn't die, you know. We supplement with our,
Particularly a solar one.
every age.
Yes.
Every age, honestly. You'll find any study that talks about the death of the book is lying, because even younger generations, even teens, when I worked at the community college, every time a professor used an e-textbook, the students were irate because they wanted to look at the thing and highlight the thing and underline, you know. The physical object of the book is still a very important part of our culture.
And thankfully so.
Yes.
Definitely. We have a stellar library, and I appreciate all the work that the trustees have done, and you as well as the director. I'm an advocate for the library as well, and I use it quite often. Megan sees me quite often.
I mean, our circulation is up 13% from last year, which was up 20% from the year before, so we are seeing increase, you know, physical, this is the physical book, this isn't, you know, adding in our digital circulation, so our print resources are in demand and being used. So,
It is a busy place. There's always someone in there, so a lot of people in there actually at one time. So.
yeah, especially Tuesday afternoons are usually
Busy.
very busy. They're one of our busiest days, it just happens.
Thank you very much. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. We appreciate all the trustees coming as well, so.
Thank you. Do you want me to stick around for the warrant article part, or do you think this
I
conversation sort
haven't
of?
put their warrant article on here. I knew you mentioned something, but I hadn't heard anything further, so we'll have to add that.
I think we might want to push more articles to another meeting.
I would hope so,
Just so
yes.
we have a more complete picture for you.
Right.
I'd like to have a work session with the select board ahead of time too, so they can help direct some of the priorities.
Definitely.
And maybe move some of these off, because right now we're at number 45.
Okay, yes, please. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Milt, do you have to be somewhere sometime soon? We've got planning board meetings.
Well, if we can, we'd love to hear it.
Can you go ahead and?
Yes, actually,
It's huge, so
I was hoping that we could, since I'm going to be doing the
Because they had to
opera
purchase
house,
the
planning board,
It's
the health officer, and then come back.
That's fine, that's
Yeah,
good.
you're gonna flash it.
That's perfect.
So if you want to flip to your planning and zoning budget,
Oh, can you lift it?
that's handed out to you tonight.
What page is that?
Well, it says 101, because I'm doing them individually until we get a complete budget packet again. But it's the planning and zoning budget.
There we go.
We'll go over this first, and then we'll talk about the health officer, which is in the executive budget.
So Joanna and Milt, do you want to introduce yourselves? We have a couple of new.
I'm Joanna Rain, Planning and Zoning Administrator and Deputy Health Officer.
I'm Milton Bratz, I'm the health officer and the zoning officer. And I think we're going to go over both these positions.
So I'm going to quickly run through this, and then let Joanna and Milt take over on this. This is the planning and zoning, and in the default budget, there is a very minor increase of $1,150. That can relate to a couple of different things in here, and Social Security, the way the calculation is, had to be corrected. There's a few little adjustments in the life insurance, disability insurance, in the wages from the 2019 approved raise, adding in for the full year in 2020. There are no other changes that I can remember other than a slight change in the retirement. It's all wage and benefit related. So 1.31% in the default. In the proposed, we have the calculated 3% for Joanna, the Planning Zoning Administrator and Deputy Health Officer. We've increased the zoning officer. Milt has done a wonderful job, and there's a lot more time to this position than people realize, and we'll be going over that in just a few minutes. We have a slight increase to the health insurance. It's a 2.2% increase. Have an increase in training expense. There is additional cost. It seems like every year the training goes up a little bit more. And we have training of the planning board members as well as the office staff and the zoning officer. We've added some cost for planning, zoning, legal. This year, we've expended $15,397 as of September 30th. We've increased it to $10,000, it's a $5,000 increase. Under professional services, we also have included in the proposed a $10,000 amount for a CIP update. We're due to do a capital improvement plan update, and with that comes some additional cost. We have an increase in postage because we are mailing all packets out rather than emailing them out or PDFing them out. Some people don't have enough technical equipment to do all of the printing of some of the items, and it's been asked of Joanna to mail these items out now. There's an increase in book and periodicals. This is the RSA updates, and it pertains to some of the rules and regulations that our planning and zoning department have to follow. So the total cost in the proposed budget difference is $21,097. It's a 24.11% increase. A majority of that increase is in planning and zoning legal and professional services CIP. That amounts to $15,000 of it.
CIP
Capital improvement planning. It's a plan to,
It's a document to help you guys know what the departments are needing over the course of, it's a 6-year plan.
Capital improvement planning for the town departments? Is that-
Yeah.
Yes, town departments. Yeah, the planning board, it's under them, the statute, saying that they organize it and have a committee or designate someone.
We have some of the groundwork done, but I think that an independent third-party consultant would be best to come in and really hash it all out and present a final document to the planning board.
When was the last one done?
It expired in 2018, so we've kind of have collected information over that time period, and yeah, it's time to get a final document. We just haven't had, we don't have the staff really.
Well, or not necessarily, this isn't, or the expertise to have
Right.
overall, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
An independent look to it,
Right.
it's not just each department.
Joanna wants the whole her department to have everything, right? No, that would, okay, so that's 15,000 total, right?
10,000 for that.
10,000 and
And
then,
then 5,000 added more for legal because of the cost of legal. And I believe Joanna has brought some information to hand out to you,
okay,
I broke down
just so you
the-
could
the
see
top.
why
How it's
it's
spent.
costing. Her numbers will be different than what I have in here because hers are more up to date. Mine, this was done, mine were done the end of September. And if you could do just a quick overview of it, Joanna?
There's a little difference because another bill had come in for one of the zoning violations. So I broke it down to this two different zoning appeals. One is a combination of zoning and health officer, the junkyard. And then there's also a section for general questions on procedure. So the total so far is up to 25,000, which is unusual.
I'm just looking at some of the convenient MD is,
Yes, that was a zoning board appeal.
Yes, so really it's the abutting property owners appealing or, trying to stop, I guess, that project from moving forward through the zoning process and us defending the planning board's decision.
And in the end, they withdrew their request, so they built conforming to the zoning ordinance in the end.
okay. But you still had to have legal counsel through all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no way to recoup any of that.
Because
So that's almost $6,000 right there in one
Okay.
case.
And then the 13,000, the court decision came back affirming the zoning board's decision. So they won that case, but it took $13,000 to do it.
So these are legal expenses for attorneys to represent.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Just
just,
for the planning.
yeah, it's just
That's okay.
interesting because it's just
Zoning.
really two cases, and it shows you, with continued expansion of the town, we're likely going to continue to have this kind of pressure on the legal line of planning and zoning.
These legal expenses obviously look legitimate, but can we talk about the legal expenses as a whole?
Yeah, that's a separate line. So planning and zoning is the only budget that has actually a separated legal line. I'm not sure why it was done that way, but all other departments come under a legal line that's later on in the budget, but we have that.
Well, we reviewed legal and other budgets already. I mean, I remember questioning it, we increased the legal budget in another department. I can't remember now if it was assessing or not, I'm looking at assessing.
So we only have one other line and it covers all other departments, but you're right, it's a line item near assessing.
Okay, so
Is it in the executive office?
The tax collector has a legal line. Or assessing is one or the other.
Yeah, so my question is this, can those monies be intermingled, so to speak? Can you use legal from any budget to pay for? The reason is we significantly underspent that legal budget, and when I questioned at the last meeting, the answer was, well, we have other legal expenses that have to get covered, and planning was one of those examples. But now I see planning's budget going up, and we haven't even come close to expending this other budget,
I think,
unless
Which
it's
line
over.
are you, which,
Well,
What's it
this may
under?
not, we got so many different versions of this, I'm not sure.
yeah.
But it's
So-
under legal, it's under the section legal.
section legal?
We do have a section legal that is for general legal.
Oh, there it is.
For selectmen legal use, for employment concerns, so on. We bumped the proposed in that to 80,000, it was 75.
Right,
It also includes the collective bargaining legal, which we kept the same, I think it's 17,500 in for the last couple of years. We'll probably be very close to the 75,000 in legal, offsetting this additional expenditures at the end of the year.
okay.
So we have a legal line that is separate, that's used for selectmen, town manager, personnel issues, anything that's outside of planning and zoning and assessing. Assessing also has its own legal line.
So like,
And in the assessing budget, we have $4,000 in there, we've expended $3,000.
Okay, so I guess my first question is, can money that's budgeted in this legal section, budget, be used to pay legal fees for other departments? Or do they have to be kept separate?
it's usually bottom line. So-
It's a bottom line budget.
Okay,
He is
all right, so,
correct, it's a
okay,
bottom line budget, so.
But you expect that so did I understand you said you expect that by the end of the year, we're going to be much closer to this legal budget?
To all of the total legal budgets together.
We have services that we haven't been billed for yet.
Yeah,
Right.
like I've seen some even going in this week for the labor
Yes,
negotiations.
I know, I'm involved with one of them.
You know that, yeah.
I understand.
And there's other legal disputes that are kind of ongoing, like,
Okay.
25 Amanusic, or, the lot line adjustment and purchase of 17 Hillview, or, up on Crane Street, any of those issues are still kind of making their way through legal.
Okay,
It'll be interesting at the end of the year,
thank you.
kind of level.
So all in all, between the two legal line items, that for planning and zoning and the other, the legal, you've increased the total amount by 10,000? 5,000 in this one and 5,000 in the
This one,
other?
5,000 in the other, yes.
Tax collector legal flat.
And that's flat.
Yeah.
It's not tax collector, it's
It's,
assessing.
Assessing, okay, of course.
So, I know Milt has some information for you regarding the zoning officer. And I'm going to move quickly to the health officer so he can do his presentation. The health officer is an executive. And it's line 17, then executive. We have increased this line from 5,200 to 7,500.
Okay, I just need, oh, there we go. So
Yeah.
you're 4 pages in
Yes.
from the beginning? Yeah.
I'll do better at getting these
That's okay.
together. So we've increased this because there is more activity. There's more involvement in the town than what there had been in the past, and it does take a lot of hours to do this position. It's not a position that could be done right under what we used to pay for this position, which was $2,000 a year at one time.
So it's Line 17.
line 17. We've also increased for the health officer some mileage because there is a lot of traveling with this. There's a lot of investigation with this. There's also traveling to training with this. So we went from $200 to $500 for the health officer mileage. And I'm going to turn this over to Milt so he can talk about the position a little bit more, both positions.
What I'm going to do is pass out a packet to you. And the packet has the job description for the health officer and for the zoning officer. So we'll deal with the health officer first, and I've had them separated by paper clips. This position is exempt. This is a salaried position, and the reason it's exempt and not an hourly position is because both positions carry an extensive amount of independent decision-making by law. So I put exempt on the job description. We've reformatted this. For those of you who deal with job descriptions, you know that these are discoverable in court of law. The employer is responsible for the accuracy of the job description. The employee is responsible for carrying out the essential duties. So I'm going to pass these out to you. We're going to go over the health officer first, and then I only have 10 copies, so can
I don't need one.
Okay. To you guys. And attached to the job description is a copy of the year's activities. I'm going to walk through that with you. Here's the other side.
So when was the last time, I'm sensitive to this, last time that this job description was updated?
We've been working on it for the course of the last 3 years.
We did it in 2017, did we?
Yeah, and the other one is, this is primarily a formatting issue, because in all honesty, there were 17 essential duties, and about 5 is what I spend most of my time doing. You want to say? You okay?
Thank you. I'll take off for Steve. Okay. You have it, thanks.
So, I put exempt on there because there's an issue here of state law. The health officer is appointed by the selectmen. There are no requirements. We built in a 2-year degree, associate's degree, and some preferences which I'll get into that we would like to see. I'm 80 years old. I may not be standing perpendicular to the floor much longer. Rudy, stop smiling. Anyway.
I can't wait when you die.
At some point, I will have to be replaced one way or another. And in moving this position up to 7,500, I have to tell you, 15 years ago, this was a volunteer position. It was filled by our local veterinarian, Dick Hill, and he did this for a number of years for nothing. 10 years ago, the zoning officer's position was a volunteer position. It wasn't paid for at all. Both positions, before my time, became $2,000 stipends per year. If you apply a 2,080-hour work year to $2,000, it comes to 96 cents an hour. Clearly, to have volunteers do this is fine, but the obligations and the legality and the issues that the town faces liability-wise really requires that you have it paid. Going to $7,500 a year is simply trying to make this position attractive, as well as the zoning officer, for perhaps for this health position for a retired nurse, a retired physician, retired healthcare worker. I carry a master's degree in public health. It's 50 years old. I don't even remember quite what we talked about back during that time, but it had a lot to do with building in, what do they call them, we still have them here, the particular kinds of hospitals. Anyway, so let me go through this first one with you and explain how the position works. Serves as an executive officer for the health board. The zoning board the select board is the health board. I've yet to activate the health board, although we threatened to do that on a number of occasions. It's based on how the state law is written. Works in a liaison capacity with the New Hampshire Department of Public Health Services, New Hampshire Division of Health and Human Services, New Hampshire Department of Fish and Game, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, to enforce public health laws and rules, local ordinances and regulations, etc. Works with the town manager, zoning officer, police chief, fire chief, and highway department director to resolve interdepartmental public health problems and concerns, as well as accept referrals from those departments for resolution. Very quickly, 3 years ago, Shaw's pipes leaving the facility broke. Early on a Saturday morning, the plow driver who was plowing the parking lot realized he had human feces on his plow blades. And about 11 o'clock, a police car came to my house to get me because they were having an enormous argument down in the parking lot with the regional manager for Shaw's. And the highway department director, the police chief was there, and the fire chief was there. The health officer for food, which is a separate position, that person at that point in time is located in Keene. He would come up here on a good day, let alone a Saturday with snow. So I got called in, we closed Shaw's, and we stipulated steps that they had to take to reopen. And so that was my call. It was really the other health officer's call, but he wasn't able to come up. So this is where all of our departments came together, and we had discussions out in the parking lot, closed Shaw's for a few hours. They went through a hand washing procedure that I watched where they were handling food because the water was turned off. They set up 8 porta potties. You may remember this for those of you who may have been shopping that day, out in the parking lot for people to use. And that was just an example. 3 weeks later, 99's pipes broke. There was feces out in the parking lot. I was there on a Saturday morning. We were taking it off the parking lot. And they were going to have their own staff clean it up. And I told them they couldn't do that, so they had to bring in a certified firm from Laconia to clean it up. And so that's kind of where we all work together as a department, or as departments within the town. Provides ongoing pertinent public health information and recommendations to the town manager and central office staff. Reports to the Commissioner of the Department of Health and Human Services. I have administrative responsibility reporting to the town manager, but it's a broken line. The solid line professionally is with the Commissioner. I've never been called to report to the Commissioner, but that's how the state law is written. Unlike the zoning board, the zoning officer. Reports to the Commissioner when requested or as needed, and maintains administrative reporting to the town manager. Content performs the following on behalf of the town: enforce public health laws and rules, conducts investigations directed by the Board of Health, DHHS or any other state agency, initiates educational and informational programs to keep Littleton residents updated regarding public health issues and concerns. I'll go through some of that in a few minutes. Tier 1 is really lists the activities that I do almost all the time. And when we get to the second sheet where you see my activities for the last 12 months, you'll see that the first one is the big one. Enforce minimum standards for rental housing. I have a protocol. I don't go into any facility without the police knowing I'm there. So I call ahead of time to say I'm going into this place, and there's been a complaint filed either by the owner of the building or by the person renting. And sometimes the police come with me. When I leave, I call the police department back. I give them a time frame, and then if I don't get out in time, hopefully they'll come and find me. That hasn't happened yet. So far, it's worked pretty well. Enforce laws and regulations that protect public health and public safety. I had 2 ordinances passed a couple of years ago, one for bear-proofing dumpsters, and the other one for Oh, the parks. People were using the athletic fields to let their dogs run. And we put up signs, the newspapers did a great job writing articles about this, and actually it's worked. I checked with the coaches from the various teams. As you may remember, kids were spending 15, 20 minutes cleaning up dog poo before they could start their games. And so that's pretty much gone away, and that's worked well.
Actually, I think we've seen less bears in town. I don't know if that has.
This summer was unique because apparently the woods had enough to, statewide they had less bear encounters. Littleton is number 5 for bear encounters statewide, but overall, this year's been a good year for bear staying kind of staying put. Conduct safety investigations. Conduct child care and foster care inspections as requested. Conduct sanitary investigations into complaints and nuisances that may endanger public health and public safety. Again, I usually police go with me if they need to. We had a situation that I'll tell you very briefly over on Union Street where there was a bad smell coming out of a basement apartment a couple years ago. And the manager of the apartment building called me, and the 2 fellows who were renting there were well known to the police. So on that particular day, 2 police officers showed up, and I think one had body armor on. I'm just not sure. He looked like he did. They went downstairs. Nobody answered. They opened the door. What had happened is that they had pulled the plug on the refrigerator and left all the food inside. And so, and the place was really kind of a bad mess. So conduct inspections of educational facilities as requested by the New Hampshire Department of Education using forms provided. I did Lakeway last December. I did the high school the previous year, and I did Bronson, the new Bronson, the year before that. This is an on-call position, responds to immediate requests for assistance from municipal departments or state agencies when called upon to address and identify public health issues. Got a call one night a few years ago from the Department of Environmental Service, Department of Food Administration. The fire suppressant system at 99 let go at 8:30. They had just closed the door to the last customer, and all of a sudden, all of the kitchen, the ovens are all covered with fire suppressant. And I got a call from the state. They didn't know what kind of chemical that particular 99 restaurant used for their fire suppressants. They just didn't have it in their records, so I went over there. Luckily, an engineer from the company that put in the suppressant system was there, and we got the information down to the state. So health officers represent the state when they need you. They called me one day. There was a septic system failure some years ago where they never got the final report, so I went out to the property and inspected it and called them back. So they do rely on health officers in the local communities, even though they don't pay the health officers in local communities, but they rely on us. Tier 2, serve as a local information source on rabies, mosquito-borne illnesses, foodborne illnesses, communicable diseases, and environmental health issues. I do have a website, and I'll go over it with you in a little while, where I put information, and we also have information at the town offices in racks on various health issues for people to pick up and read. Assist in the development of policies and plans that support individual and community health and environmental health efforts. Conduct inspections of new or modified healthcare facilities. Upon request by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services or residential complaint, inspect septic systems to determine and certify the operational integrity. We have one that's viable right now at Partridge Lake, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Upon request from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, participating in enforcing steps to avoid pollution of any aquifer or body of water. Upon request from the Environmental Services, participate in testing of any public or private water supplies We have one state plumbing. We have one state pool inspector. There are 2,200 pools in the state of New Hampshire. He does most of his work in the summer with hired staff that he uses, like college students, etc., to go out and test pools, either private pools in hotels or public pools like our pool in the park. So New Hampshire doesn't have a great supply of state-level people who do these inspections. In this case, the health officer locally would just assist. Upon request by the Department of Public Health and in coordination with the lead inspector, participated in conducting lead paint poisoning inspections, applying criteria, and using forms provided by the agency. Work environment, office-based about 30%, community-based about 70%. We built in an associate's degree with preferred concentration in community or public health, or equivalent 3 to 5 years of experience in a position like this. 2+ years of municipal work experience would be nice for a person to have coming in. There are certain constraints as well as certain advantages to working for a municipality. Skills and abilities, ability to work independently, organized, detail-oriented, time-managed, excellent interpersonal skills, excellent inter-organizational skills. And I'll get into this again in a minute for the person who's going to replace me at some point. Excellent communication skills, verbal and written, software literate, and then the rest of this, the physical activities. This was standard for job descriptions here in the town of Littleton, and maybe for all municipalities, so that's what was there. The next form, the Littleton Health Officer Actions 11/1/18 through 10/31/19. This was actually kind of a light year in some respects. Foster home health inspections, I had one on Fairview Avenue and one on Cross Street. This is where people have foster children in their home. The inspection is good for 3 years if they pass. I'm looking for refrigerator temperatures and freezer temperatures and water temperatures, and looking for where the kids, where their rooms are and how they're situated, where drugs are stored, where food is stored, that sort of stuff. Child care facilities, we have about 10 to 11 in the Littleton area. I only had 2 that I did this year, and again, those are 3-year inspections, and then they come around again. One on Bronson Street and one on McBean Circle. Again, I inspected Lakeway. I have to tell you very quickly, I was there for 6 hours on a Saturday, and about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in an upstairs room, and I stepped out of the room, and of course, it's pretty quiet. And all of a sudden, all the blue lights started flashing, and I said to myself, was I not supposed to go into that room? And all the rooms were open to me because I had a pass key. And then I heard the fire truck coming, so I just stood there and I waited. The fireman came up the stairs and he said, "You know you were here." He said, "Nothing to do with you, the propane tank just ran out of fuel." So that was my big event for Lakeway Elementary School. This was the first inspection I've done at an educational facility where the health officer was not asked to pass or fail this facility. This is apparently changed statewide. So when I did Bronson and when I did the high school, I either had to pass or not pass based on the information I had.
Excuse me, when it's a public school and you have an inspection, where does that information go for the public to see?
It doesn't, it goes to the Department of Education. Now, whether or not if you had access, if you asked to see it, I don't know the answer to that. There's nothing, what we're looking for, like in Bronson, in all 3 of these schools, because of when they were built, but primarily Lakeway, is flaking paint and possibility of lead. But I don't know where you go to get it.
Because I think that's really, it's imperative that the public know the condition of their schools, and especially with the, an inspection such as that. I don't know what it's included on the inspection exactly, but I think it's important for the public to know about the public facilities, which includes a school.
And thinking about I have a copy at home. There's nothing confidential about that report. So if you wanted to see it, I think I could just give it to you.
But I think, well, I would like to see it, but I think it's important. So is that presented to the school board?
No, it goes directly to the Department of Education, and I think we never saw it, did we?
No. The reason why I'm asking that is you don't want to have an inspection, you don't want to go through the whole process and have the report sit on a shelf, especially if a particular part should be corrected or just general information that it's okay, everything's fine, we don't have to worry about this, or there are projects that we need to do.
The major issue I had at Lakeway had to do with the false ceiling and the squares. Many of them had been moved and not replaced. The mice spend their winters up in those crawl spaces. So I took a lot of pictures, and all of that went out to the Department of Education.
So what is the name of that report? Because I think we should ask the school board when they're here if they've read that report and if they post it on their own website.
I'll get it. I don't know. All I know is that it goes to the principal, and then it goes to the superintendent, and it goes down to Congress.
Okay, thank you.
Dilapidated housing, RSA 155B, and rubbish warnings. I had 3 on Union Street. The one on Union Street was, I can tell you which house it is. It's the one that's up on the other side of the street, and it has the storage units next to it. It sits back, it's an old Victorian, it sits back kind of high up. The day I went there, there were close to 60 or 70 garbage bags in the backyard. A lot of them had edible garbage. The animals had already been there, and the neighbor had complained to me about the garbage bags. Come to find out that the building had been vacated a few months before that, because on July 1st, a new lead law went into place in New Hampshire where preschoolers are tested for lead levels. As you know, youngsters are susceptible to lead poisoning, where as you grow up, that kind of goes away. That house apparently had preschoolers in it, and they must have tested high for lead because the owners of the building vacated the building, must have been sometime in June. Sometime, I got the complaint. I got there sometime in early July, and it was just a mess there. So, didn't know that was the reason until just recently. In fact, we were at a conference where I was told why that house was vacated by the state. They never alerted me to the fact that they were even here, but in any event, that was a lead situation. Elm Street was a court action pending. The address is 101 Elm Street. You may know, if you go up the hill, what property I'm talking about. It's on East Side of the street. We had court action on one occasion with the owners. It's going to continue. Grove Street was an abandoned house. Neighbors were complaining there's a lot of stuff left out in the yard. And the owner came and cleaned it up after I sent an order out to him. Failed septic system at Partridge Lake. I had not had one of these before in the 4 years I've been a health officer. I was kind of hoping I could get through this entire thing without this happening, but it happened. I had to find out which laboratory would take the test. You'll read about it a little bit later. But I did testing, and I took samples on the ground early in the morning, fully clothed, and because the fluent was right up on the road. What I didn't know is that you have to test within 8 hours. I held that sample over the weekend, and of course it wasn't any good. I've gone out a few times to try to find it again. Last Monday just before the storm system came in. And there hasn't been any fluid, so I may have to wait until spring. But it's clearly a system that's in failure, and the waste is coming up onto the road.
And Milt, did you not say that the state, the DES people are not supporting you?
They weren't supporting me because, again, the guy there's one person in the state of New Hampshire who's responsible for this. He relies on health officers to do this. He told me what equipment I needed if I had to start digging. Luckily, this stuff is coming up right onto the road. So he did send me the list of labs that will test. The one in Gorham was the closest. Doesn't test for E. coli. The town one here in Littleton is not certified. It's a good lab, the one that's done the treatment plant, but it's not certified by this particular division of DES. So I've got one in Lebanon that will take the test. If I can get it early in the morning, I can drive it down there and have it tested. But I haven't been able to do that yet.
Well, the Life Association will provide a courier, will do whatever it's needed.
Yeah, I found out that I'm the one that has to bring it in. I have to sign off on it. So I've got that. I mean, I've got a lot of equipment. I was going to bring the big bag up there tonight, but I decided to leave it in the car. I've got test bottles and all kinds of new things. Okay, so minimum housing. This is where my major activity is. Chiswick Avenue was raw sewage. The highway department called me. The owners who are out of state. There's a lot of properties in this town that are out of state owners or out of town owners as well. They cleaned it up. Hill Street was a mold situation involving two elderly people who were dealing with a leak in the ceiling of their rental, and mold was forming over the bathroom because that's where the leak was coming in from the roof. The maintenance people were not responding. They came to the town and filed a complaint, and I took pictures and sent them to the owners that lived in a different state. And they fixed it immediately. They had it fixed immediately. Union Street police referral to the mental health issue. There was dog feces as well as human feces in the apartment. I don't carry a caseload. This position is not a clinical position, so I ultimately refer to elder services. Lafayette was a mental health issue with a younger person and a child. Maple Street was a water leakage. Union Street, both Union Streets were hoarding issues and no heat in one of those apartments. Union Street up on top, 91919, was a hoarding and mental health issue. Beacon Street was bed bugs infestation. Also, the health officer doesn't have jurisdiction in individual homes. The hoarding situation in an individual home, I have no authority. Apartment buildings, I have authority because other apartments are affected. Now, if the hoarding is spilling into the outside, that's a different issue. Then it does affect neighbors and abutters. Jackson Street, there's 30 or 40 bags of garbage in the apartment that was not being taken out. Most of it was just paper, but not edible garbage. Some of it was edible garbage. There was a junior high schooler in there who I happen to know. Union Street police referral. This was another elderly apartment and hoarding situation. Saranac Street. If you go down Saranac Street from the bank, you'll see the mobile home on the left-hand side near the river. There were 9 people living in that little mobile home. Obviously, it overwhelmed the leach field. They weren't tied into town water. They still had a septic system, and it obviously was failing. South Street was no heat. Sampson Road was trailer occupancy with just a mess inside the trailer and outside, and it was outside the trailer that I had jurisdiction over. Chapter 3A, control of dogs on public property. We've had no issues, as I indicated before. Dumpster ordinances, we had a few, not as many as 2018, but Meadow Street was a bare complaint. West Main Street was just a, some of you may have seen it, there was a whole string of garbage bags and junk laying out at a West Main Street apartment building for a couple of weeks. And that was actually a police call. The one on Cottage Street was an overfill. The one on Crane Street was, the bear did come back. Crane Street apartments have serious issues with bears. And I've talked to the owners of the complex, in fact, new owners, no, I'm sorry, it's Raw Complex. The owners I've talked to, I've talked to the dumpster company. In fact, I fined the dumpster company because they weren't bear-proofing the dumpster that they had there. West Elm Street was a construction dumpster. Construction dumpsters in the town of Littleton are supposed to be covered during the summer when they're not being used because we were trying to avoid the accumulation of standing water for mosquito reasons. The Far Hill Road issue was also a construction dumpster. East Street was a bare. Meadow Street was overfilled. And South Street was a complaint about how it was being handled. For 2020, I'm looking to initiate a municipal-wide lead poisoning prevention program. I have statistics here, which I won't bring up to you, but we have a number of preschoolers here in Littleton that are testing high for lead. And so, because so many of our properties are pre-1974 properties, lead-based paint may be used. If they're pre-1950, there may be all kinds of lead issues in those homes. And for preschoolers, it's primarily a preschooler issue. Other communities have started programs. I can't tell you what this program is going to be. There's a meeting on December 11th down in Concord, and I'm trying to attend that. So, I send out 3 letters. The first letter is a notice of concern and recommendation. This is just a letter reminding them that the complaint's been filed. The second letter, I don't read that, you don't have. The second letter is a letter of deficiency, which I begin citing the state laws that there may be a violation. And the third letter is a notice of violation in order that I send out to people. That basically is it for the health officer. Do you have any questions?
Would you mind to talk about the lawsuit that you guys have in the health department, please?
Which suit?
Lawsuit that you guys have in the health department and about the place down in across the street from McDonald.
Oh,
you were involved because you went to court. Yeah, I saw you.
Oh, do you mean when it was the bagel place, Chinese food? That one? Bob Every?
Probably.
Yeah.
No, he talk about the good things. Whether he talk about, it's when the people are trying to.
Can I talk about it?
Yes, sure.
Money?
Thank you.
Okay, we can do that.
And I think also, I think he's referring to Every versus Town of Littleton, where there was a sewage issue.
Yeah, Mr. Everett, you may remember he won the local district court here. He didn't win anywhere else. The last federal court dismissed the case.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's the only lawsuit that you guys have against the health department?
Yeah, it was dismissed by the second federal court hearing.
Thank you.
No further.
Right. If there's no other questions, I just want to tell you that Convenient MD, this is going back to the dumpster ordinance. Convenient MD contacted me a couple days ago and wanted to know if their dumpster heads, because you're going to have a 6 yards is 18 feet long. You're going to have a dumpster down there, and they were to understand that the dumpsters in Littleton had to be bear-proof. And I said, yes, it did. And apparently they got a corporate argument about doing that because of the cost of the metal covers, and, you know, they're constructed just a wee bit differently than a regular dumpster, obviously. But they agreed that they're gonna have their approved dumpster down there, that'll be down there in the next few days, I guess. They're gonna, I think, try to open on December 1st, so that works. If there's nothing else, I will go to the zoning also.
Yeah.
Okay with that? The zoning officer that was in place up to a few years ago carried a gun. He had guns pointed at him periodically. I think part of it he owned, part of it was people don't sometimes like to hear that they're in violation of the zoning ordinance. I don't carry a gun. But that person also worked for free up to a certain point, and then got the $2,000 stipend. So this was, again, until relatively recently, a position that was filled by a volunteer. This is an exempt position. It's a department, the central office is the department. Relationships, work in a liaison capacity with planning and zoning administrator. Works with town manager, police chief, fire chief, health officer, highway department director to resolve interdepartmental zoning problems and related concerns, as well as accept referrals from these departments. We have two. One's going to be coming to the zoning board in December or January. It's called BESS, Battery Energy Storage Systems. We're proposing to take over 13.5 acres out near the substation. They're going to have 90-some batteries. Fire chief has some concerns about this. So we're working as a unit, as various departments on this particular zoning request. And we also have a building here on Main Street that's being renovated on the inside. They also had some outside renovations to the building, which involved the zoning officer at that point. Inside renovations do not involve the zoning officer for the most part. So we work, departments work together. Works in a liaison capacity with pertinent state agencies. Works in a liaison capacity with the planning and zoning administrator, and reports to the town manager. Perform a broad range of responsibilities relative to the enforcement of the Littleton zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. Again, I tiered this job description because there were, well, there's 11 here, there were 13 on the old one. Some of them really weren't job duties. They were conditions of employment. So, Tier 1, timely review and approval or rejection of building permits received and recorded in the Office of the Planning and Zoning Administrator. We're up to 78 for the year 2019. The attachment will break it out for you in terms of where most of those are. On-site inspections of all approved projects to ensure that ordinance provisions are being met with timely documentation of findings, including photos when deemed necessary. Follow up on site inspections when warranted with timely written documentation of findings, including photos when deemed necessary. Investigate complaints regarding potential land use violations and issue orders for corrective actions and abatements with timely written documentation, including photos. Initiate legal counsel intervention and liaison with planning and zoning administrator following approval of the town manager regarding the prosecution of unresolved violations. Assist in prosecution through court testimony and sworn deposition. Now, my wording here, because this is where this job has now become really busy. On the second, Tier 1, on-site inspections of all approved projects. The old job description said be available to inspect properties with active building permits from time to time to ensure that provisions of the zoning ordinance are met. This wasn't done a lot. And it's not a criticism of the people that preceded me, But again, the amount of money being paid for the position, and in both those cases, these people had other jobs to do. I frankly have this job to do and the health officer job to do. I go out to every site, at least once, sometimes twice. On some sites, I've been out there 4 or 5 times because they haven't started yet. The issue is when they're lined up to begin their projects. But I'll explain that a little bit later.
Can I ask you a question about
Sure.
that? So if you're saying that some of these responsibilities weren't being performed on a regular basis, how do we review this position and the person in it to make sure in the future? I know you're doing it, but where
I may have
in
an
this?
answer for you in a little while.
Okay,
It's a
all right.
separate handle.
Okay.
So that's the big one. And if you don't go out, everybody knows that. When you do go out, it was because we had questions about setbacks in certain situations where we needed to get the information. And it's not because they didn't do their jobs. They did their jobs within the limit of which they could do. If you have 70 or 80 building projects going on, you may not visit all of them. I make a point of visiting all of them all the time. So that's where the major difference comes in. And that's what this town needs to expect. Because again, the employer is liable for the accuracy of the job description, and the employee is liable for carrying out the job description responsibilities. If you don't want the zoning officer going out visiting, then take this out of the job description. And if you take it out of the job description or reduce it enough, then having zoning ordinances doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
That's exactly what I was trying to.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because if that position goes away, doesn't that fall to the town select board? The responsibility of it?
Not the select board. Is it a select board issue?
So it's not as if the position is eliminated, that the task necessarily has to go away, or that the duty goes away.
Actually, the
Just
duty is
transfers.
mentioned in the zoning ordinance, so
Yeah.
that would have to change.
Yeah.
To
But
say
if-
who then would be administrating it.
Okay, but if, say, certain positions or certain tasks went away, it's not as if, there's,
You're saying
the
the
select board
municipalities.
may assume those responsibilities, so.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess legal would know, but I guess
yeah,
if you
the
were
hard
to
part
eliminate
is,
some of these tasks, you may end up just passing that on to somebody else.
yeah, and I think it's better if you have a person being able to do this.
Sure.
Only because once the foundation's in, you won't identify anyone. You may remember a zoning board meeting where the contractor said that he gave it his Yankee eye. The corner of it was in another person's yard by a few feet. I give the Yankee eye sometimes because I know what 10 and 15 feet look like. I don't measure. Sometimes I measure. But this is really supposed to be a positive thing, not a negative thing. But if everybody's aware of the fact that somebody's going to be checking to see if in fact what was laid out on the plan is kind of like fitting, given the Yankee eye, that's better for the community because that means the zoning ordinances that are in place are actually being adhered to. Not to say they wouldn't be anyway, but at least there's a check in it. And that second item, those inspections, that's where this becomes an important thing. So, Tier 2 participates with the planning and zoning administrator in the interpretation and explanation of regulations, requirements, and processes when requested. Participates with the planning and zoning administrator in the review of plans and specifications to determine if they comply with the Littleton zoning and subdivision ordinances or state statutes. So, Joanna and I spend a lot of time together, and she is the resource here in this town for all the knowledge you may need ever to have in terms of how zoning ordinances are written and what page they're on. She's very helpful. Attend all zoning board of adjustment meetings when scheduled. That's new under the old one, the old job description. I think it's just important that the zoning officer be at every meeting, whether or not he or she needs to be there for any particular issue. Attend planning board meetings when requested, and attendance at appropriate workshops and training. High school diploma, post-high school earned academic credits desired, 2+ years municipal work experience desired, valid New Hampshire driver's license. Some of this comes off of the old one. The skills and abilities are the same as listed on the other job description. Any questions?
How come there's no valid New Hampshire driver's license requirement for the health officer?
He's told to walk. I don't know what it is.
I actually heard him say a few times the police came and got him.
Yeah.
There is a reason.
May want to talk about that.
Yeah. Okay, this gives you from 11/1/18 through 10/31/19, the activities of the zoning officer. All of these addresses were visited at least once. Some are still being visited. Fence installations, shed/barn construction replacement, porch deck build, expand, replace, garage build, replace, expand, new home construction, room unit additions. Proposals on hold. We have a number of things that have come to us that just haven't gone anywhere yet. A truck garage on Monroe Road, a garage apartment on Willow Street, a mixed-use proposal on Beacon Street, rentals on Industrial Park Road. You may see he's already out there on Industrial Park Road right next to the bridge. He's renting vehicles. He's looking to do a lot more out there. Parcel mergers on Jackson Street. On the second page, other approvals that just didn't fit into those categories. Main Street outside dining area, that's the Treehouse Tavern. They put that section in the back on the second. A roof extension on Meadow Street, an artist studio location. Somebody's looking to put an artist studio up on the Mount Eustis Road in a large area that she owns. A breezeway addition on Russell Court, closed fire escape on Mill Street, internal and external building renovations on Mill Street. Zoning board actions regarding the zoning officer decisions. Jackson Street, the referral, this is from Littleton Regional Hospital. They brought the engineering firm up at the top of Jackson Street. They want to house overnight staff there. I referred them to the zoning board. They needed a special exception to do that. That was approved. This will come up later in another document I'm going to hand out to you just before I close here. Drew Street, the proposal was to have a used car lot on Drew Street. That was referred to the zoning board for a variance that was denied. Forest Hill Road, this is the BESS battery energy storage system. They're being referred to the zoning board for variance. We were classifying them as a volatile fuel storage system. They didn't like that term. They want to use a different term. So I rejected the application. It's a $30 to $50 million project. It's a big deal. And it's going to be an interesting thing to listen to. Our zoning ordinance didn't allow for large battery energy farms. And so the closest thing we had was a volatile fuel storage, and they didn't like that. So they're going to be going to the zoning board probably in January. Pike Avenue, this is coming off of a situation where I ordered a transportation business off of Far Hill Road. It's in a residential area. They had no business being there. They bought a location on Pike Avenue, which is also a residential one zone. They brought into a garage that was classified as commercial. Ultimately, it went to court. Town of Littleton was sued along with the zoning board, and the Superior Court supported, came down on the side of the zoning board in denying this request to be on Pike Avenue. Just to kind of close the story, that transportation company is moving over to Railroad Street to a large parcel that's in a residential one zone, but it's been a mixed-use neighborhood for many, many years. And they'll be okay over there. Zoning officer warnings, Tuck Lane, I got outside storage. The zoning ordinance reads that you can store things up to 6 months if it's in a construction situation. The storage is well beyond that. Saranac Street, I have an abandoned building that I'm ordering to have boarded up. The fire chief will also order to have that boarded up. South Street, we have a junkyard situation occurring. Old Waterford Road, we have a construction going on without a permit, or had been. On Fire Hill, again, that was a usage violation. We had a transportation business in our residential one neighborhood, and of course, Elm Street, court action pending. I guess maybe we'll be going to court soon. Goals for 2020, establish a floodplain administration. We're being asked to have a floodplain administrator here in town by the Office
of Strategic Initiatives.
Yeah. Joanna and I attended a meeting last year sometime. What we've agreed to, and that they've agreed to with us, is we'll have a floodplain administration, not administrator. We're not going to hire a new person. There'll be a combination of the zoning officer, perhaps, of the fire chief, who's really our only building inspector in town, and perhaps Joanna's position. There's not a whole lot, except for those of us who have lived here for many years, we know that the Ammonite River can be quite high at points, and that we do have some construction in and around the river. I think the Treehouse Cavern was the closest renovation, but the first floor of that building sits above the floodplain by 7 or 17 inches or something to that effect. But we need an administrator. Our old flood plan had a building inspector identified. The town has never had a building inspector. So we do need to have this, but we can have it as a trio of current employees instead of hiring somebody. Recommend review and updating of zoning ordinances. I want to go to number 3 first. Our zoning ordinances are hard to interpret in certain cases. We have an ordinance for a front yard fence. The way the ordinance reads, if the fence lies along the front property line, it can only be 3.5 feet. Well, what if it's 6 inches back from the property line? Or we have a few, what if it's 6 or 7 feet back, but it's still in the front yard? So there are some ordinances that are hard to interpret. They seem to contradict each other. So we're looking for perhaps have the zoning ordinances reviewed, sort of like the 5-year town plan has to be reviewed and updated periodically. The second one is the International Property Maintenance Code. I would propose this at some point to the select board for consideration for the 2021 warrant. We have a number of properties in town that are vacant and abandoned. Without adopting the whole International Maintenance Code, I spent a long time writing part of the code, and I was told later that you'd have to have the whole code passed. A number of communities in the state of New Hampshire have passed the entire code, but it applies to all residences. And so we're going to look at that and work on that, because some of the homes that are abandoned are clearly health problems for the abutters, as well as problems for people who want to sell their properties nearby. And they only become a danger if they start to list and then we can perhaps tear them down. We do periodically buy properties and tear them down. That's it. The last thing I have for you is my accountability for what I do.
I am not.
And I know we've taken up most of your time, so.
Milt's record keeping and follow up with everything is incredible. It's made it flow much smoother.
Psychology, it's called being on lieutenant.
Well, I agree. If you don't have someone that's upholding the ordinances, why have the ordinances?
And having seen the difference between what we had before and what Milt's been able to really do, it's a huge difference. I think that what we have budgeted, you'll never get somebody to do what Milt does for this price. So,
Well, that's why,
keep that in mind as we move
sure,
forward.
you just want to pass this along.
Thank you.
So, every 2 weeks, I submit a mileage report. And I only, for instance, when I go down to urgent care to look at where they started to build things, I would go on a Sunday morning when I was going to get the paper or going over to Shaw's. So I wouldn't bill for that. So I have designated days that I go out, and because it makes it easier in terms of tracking things. But also, the form gives us documentation that we are visiting these sites, and it also provides time accountability for what I'm doing. So very quickly, August 26th, Badger Street. I took the name and I took the address off. Work site active, eastern edge of excavation, approximately 7 feet from the edge of the road, photo attached. Sampson Road, installed fence is contrary to permit, attached picture showing a 42 by 8 foot picket fence. Front side of property has a 72-inch flat-on privacy fence within 18 inches of the edge of the road. Ordinance violation sent to the property owner. The property owner has corrected that problem. Timber Lane, no obvious additional work. Washington Street, replacement building not evident as of this visit. Drew Street, old garage. This was a separate Drew Street situation. Old garage removed. Highland Avenue, cedar fence installed. Grove Street, work is progressing. Walls are being installed. 10 miles. August 27th, Mount Eustace Road, construction has yet to begin. I cut out the whole thing, drive. Accessory structure not installed as of, that was, accessory structure not installed as of this date. West Elm Street, foundation of new addition in place. Foundation eastern edge 9 feet from retaining wall, which is 1 foot thick, thereby conforming to the 10-foot setback requirement in the zoning ordinance. So I make a record of the visit, and I do some measuring. I do this during the day, usually people aren't home. On an updated building form, we're going to have a sentence saying, zoning officer may visit the work site. Health officer, there's all kinds of issues about going on private property, but with the zoning officer, it's just a matter of trying to see if in fact things are laid out the way we said they would. Jackson Street fence not installed as of this date. I called Ryan St. Cyr, etc., and they finally put the fence up. Willow Street construction not begun as of this date. Main Street existing deck removed. Cross Street foster care health inspection. So this was a health inspection along with the zoning. 9 miles. And then August 30th, Partridge Lake. Possible septic system failure requiring a health officer inspection. Notified that a fluid was present in front of residents. Third visit, took photos and a liquid sample. Strong odor present when sampling. We'll check with DES. See, I didn't know at that point that you needed to have this thing tested within 8 hours. Old Partridge Lake Road, no mobile home yet. Old Waterford Road, both sheds are in place. Setbacks and distances between buildings appear correct. That was a Yankee Eye assessment. Shed yet to be built on Grandview Terrace. Gary's Drive, open porch, partially constructed. Broomstick Road, the second Quonset hut completed. I had 3 or 4 calls from people who live on Broomstick Road about this particular renovation. This is a road that has many old homes. The people were really upset about this. He was building Quonset huts, replacing old home, and he can do that because it's defined as a home. The concern here, and this again goes to the person that's in this position, I read off to the people who called me the 17 or 18 things he could put on that property without even having the zoning board give him a special exception. So the property was tore up, and they were really upset about that because it's a pretty quiet rural neighborhood out there. Hopefully by now he's cleaned it up, because he told me he was going to do that. But this is one of those issues where you have a building project and you get a lot of anger and you have to spend some time dealing with the butters and neighbors. Broomstick, the second Quonset hut, complete, and that's the one I'm referring to, I guess. And then the last one is foundation is set, construction continuing. So total miles for this 3-day adventure was 56 miles, or 54 miles, 0.6. So at one before that, the inspection at Lake River had been listed. This was your sorry, I took so much of your time.
No. You know, going through all of this and having someone overseeing and making sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, the amount of money that is in this budget is nothing compared to what would happen if the rules weren't followed and things had to be redone, or our legal ones went up a little bit more, you know. So it's probably good for, you know, not much, and we get a lot from it, so thank you very much.
I have one question for Mel.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying this out a little bit. Is there an inherent conflict of the 2 positions? I mean, I heard you say that as a zoning officer, you can go out there for any reason, but as a health officer, there's all these criteria you have to follow. If you go out there as a zoning officer and you notice something that would apply as a health officer, can you act on it, or?
Yeah, I can. But I normally, because I think we're real sensitive in this community as well as most others about government, the zoning board, I think Jim can confirm this, and I have an agreement that I only respond to complaints. I do not go out looking for zoning violations. I always just wait for complaints. With the health officer, it's not so much a conflict, but sometimes there's an overlap. I can't say I've found that as a zoning officer, but sometimes I've taken care of 2 things at once as both the zoning officer and the health officer. It hasn't been a conflict.
Well, yeah, well, that's great. I have no problem with that. I'm just questioning whether sometimes you may see something that because you're there as a zoning officer and you didn't have authority to be there as a health officer.
Yeah, so I was that West Main Street where I was checking on the 9 feet and the foot, and on the other side of the where they were putting in the additional room, there was a great big construction dumpster sitting there, and it was uncovered, and there was no work going on. And again, it's a mosquito issue for the big construction dumpsters. One of the 2 mosquitoes that carry Zika has been found as far north as Laconia. Now, didn't have the Zika infection, but our local mosquitoes carry at least 5 infections. West Nile virus and Eastern equine, and this Jamestown one that's just come in. So we can never get rid of mosquitoes. But
I understand that. I'm just asking about this, the conflict issue between the 2.
Right.
So there's no issues then. No. You made a comment that there's certain requirements you have to go to a property as a health officer. I just want to.
Yeah, here's the difference. Zoning, I've never heard anything from our lawyers. Our attorneys that meet with us on health, I have the right to go onto a property as a health officer without permission, but there's a lot of case law saying that you got to be really careful when you do that. So when I went to that place on Union Street with all the garbage bags outside, I went through the protocol. I rapped on the door. The building ultimately was vacant, and I went around the back and I started taking pictures. because the owner didn't know I was there, but the owner didn't even live here.
Okay.
But there was no one there.
So far, there hasn't been any situations where that's happened.
Right. But because I go out during the day, during the week when most people are at work, to let them know in terms of the application form that possibly there'll be a visit at some point, I feel a little bit more comfortable with that.
Excuse me, as a zoning office, do you need a court permission to get in somebody's property, just in case you can get hurt very easily?
Yeah, well, that's what we were just talking about, and I don't think so, but I think we owe them a courtesy that I may come out and just check to see if the plans, see, a lot of, Rudy, there's one property on Monroe Road, I had to go down on a private road, it's his own road. To get to his work site, I had to drive down, felt like I drove 10 miles into hell to get there. But I was on his property. I had no other way to verify that what he was putting up kind of fit the plan.
Without the court order, you went inside that property?
Yeah, I do it all the time.
You do it all the time? Even if somebody's got a sign and no trespassing?
I haven't encountered that yet, but I don't think I would go if there was a sign.
Well, no problem.
I would then call. That's why we're going to put a sentence on there saying that the zoning officer may visit the construction site while it's going on.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you much.
As a construction manager who spent 45 years in the greater Los Angeles and New York City areas, my mind is just like short-circuiting right now. Because, I mean, like, when I submitted my drawings for you to review, you've charged me 25 bucks for my permit, should have been $1,000, as far as I'm concerned. And how do we know that I didn't violate setbacks and nobody came and inspected anything? And if it weren't for high-quality contractors like J.A. Corey and others that absolutely police themselves, yeah, you know, I just
Yeah, we
like,
don't have a building inspector.
yeah.
That's exactly what I was saying, the little money that we're putting into this, it's reaping, we're reaping great things.
And I, of course, I mean, I think about liability and, do we have a building code in Littleton? Do we have
We
it adopted?
didn't adopt the state code.
There's a life safety, National Life Safety Code.
Right, for the fire chief.
that the
Fire chief takes care of that.
Right. But we didn't adopt the state
And that
building.
only applies to commercial and institutional projects, right? The fire
I think
chief-
apartment buildings.
Apartment,
No,
Yeah.
multi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jim?
But the planning document does call.
And just for the viewers, if they have questions, they can call you, Joanna.
I'm sorry.
If the member of the public has questions based on what we're talking about, if they want to put a shed up, they want to do
Yes.
something.
It's always best to give me a call to check and
Yeah.
see. Yep.
You are responsible also for enforcing the state regulations, right? I mean, for instance, in my case, I had some concern about adding impervious coverage in the setback from the shoreline protection
Right.
agency and all that.
And I
kind of
try to
stuff.
work my best to know who to refer those situations to.
And I think on our permit process, we say that if something's issued, it's up to the applicant to make sure that they comply with all state and federal regulations.
Yes, it's
And I
hard for us to
think
keep up with them.
perhaps there could be some sort of self-certification that bears some, you know, should someone certify that they've done it according to the regulations,
And
and
then
then,
there is another application, if someone does build and it is off and it's violating, they can apply for an equitable waiver of dimension through the zoning board to show that they intended to build in the right place, and if they could show what happened and why it was violated.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Joanna. I'm going to rush to the next meeting here.
Yes.
So we have the Opera House, right?
We have Opera House executive and a couple little budgets to review. Now, we can put some of this off to next meeting.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? And I know that we're going to have another meeting for warrant articles, but I do have a question for you, and maybe also for the selectmen. Just going over it, it's really the original budget that you had handed out to us. And before we get into the warrant articles, I was looking at the increase, and my jaw is kind of dropping, but I also wanted to know, so the budget that you have on this, that you have the 2019 approved budget, that is actually the operating budget and all the warrant articles that were approved in this column, correct?
No, not all the warrant articles that are approved. Only the warrant articles that pertain to the budget. So anything that would have a debt payment that was started into them or a lease payment, you would include, or I would include if there was a CBA agreement. I included the movement of the parking meter, parking enhancement loan from one budget to another. So I had to account for that adjustment. But that does not include any warrant articles on that.
Give her an example of what it would include.
Okay, go ahead.
Example of what it would include is the leases or something that would become part of the budget. A full-time police officer, for example. If we had a warrant article, I would show that that would factor into.
This is what you handed out, and I was trying to figure out if those...
I would have to see it, then I can't look that far, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. How much of that's included in this?
Sub-area 2 is included into the sewer, and it's only the interest payment.
Okay.
I think there's 20,000 built in there. And that may or may not happen. It will be based on what we need to complete to get to that point. So we haven't officially started borrowing money, but we could in 2020, and we could have interest payments. We don't have a principal payment until the construction is done. So that's one item that would be included in there. The waste management planning, that is going to be completely paid off. As soon as we take that bond, we're going to be using some fund balance. Once the bond closes, we're using sewer fund balance, plus we're getting a refund of the principal. So that doesn't have any effect on this budget.
Before you go through all of it, so I'll just give you the premise of my question, and then maybe at the next meeting, so everyone can follow along with their form in front of them and try to understand. I'm trying to understand and get a base of the 2019 approved budget on this form on the major packet that she gave us, and trying to compare it to the 2020, because with the 2020 proposed, we are already at 4.42%, and that does not include any CBAs, right?
Correct.
It does not include it. And then we have a list of warrant articles that you'll be presenting. So I was trying to figure out where last year's warrant articles for like the dump truck and all of that, where that is, if that's included in.
That is included
in this right here.
Right.
So I'm just trying to be able to compare apples to apples. So if somehow you can kind of
yes,
provide us a spreadsheet of some sort so we can follow along, because it gets really confusing. And we have pockets of money over here, and we have, you know, pockets of this over here, and we're supposed to try to know how to mesh it all together. And plus, the other thing too, we had said that the sewer bill would be possibly have a 20% increase.
Yes.
So the sewer bill comes out how many times a year?
Twice a year.
So I looked at my sewer bill, and I think it's like 242 every 6 months. So then I was thinking, okay, that's $500 on a year. 20% of that is going to be $100. So I just want to kind of keep that. That's another impact that we have, because everything is coming out of the same pocket. I mean, whether or not it's a tax rate increase, or if it's a user fee increase, it's all coming out of the same pocket. So I'm just trying to keep it so we understand the bigger picture. It's very confusing, and I hope you all help me, because it is very confusing.
I agree.
And I visited with Littleton Water and Light today, and I am going to go to the commissioners meeting on the first week in December, first Monday in December. I think Tom is going to be coming here. We just have to figure out what the agenda would be, and also if a commissioner would like to attend as well. So that's coming up. But we don't have, for meetings, we don't have anything on the agenda for next week. I just want to make sure how many people are going to be here. I think I have to have a quorum. Don't I have to have a quorum to have a meeting? Yes. Even though we're not voting on anything, we have to have a quorum. And so I know I'm going to be gone. You're going to be gone, right, John? Anybody else? Will everybody else be able to attend? You will?
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Shane?
Well, and I'll be here.
Okay. So we can have a meeting, but we'll have to go over what the agenda is, and maybe the warrant articles would be part of it, you know, so we'll get together.
Well, I figured we'd finish up what we have here for budgets. I have 2 budgets that have had some changes, bigger changes in them since presenting to you these budgets, and I wanted to go over those if we had time tonight. And then, of course, the budget summary page, consolidated again, and then the warrant articles. And the warrant articles can wait to a later date, because we really want to talk to the selectmen, because some of these warrant articles may come up. Some of these may be advised by the selectmen of what they want to do.
But the other thing is, what we have proposed right now is already a 4.42%.
And with these other changes, it's looking more like 4.7.
And so I think we all need to kind of, and that was the reason why I wanted to kind of have a bigger picture presented to us, so we know exactly, because that's already a huge increase. And then I think I submitted to you earlier today some follow-up questions. I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't seen it yet. Okay, so we had some follow-up questions about the fire department and the police department, a few other things. So if we, at some point, can address those. And just for those that are, the 2 members that are new, if you ever have a follow-up question, because sometimes it's a lot to take in at one time, and then all of a sudden you do have a question. You can always submit it to me, and then I get it to Karen, and then she gets it to the department heads. So, and then we get the information that you need, so whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's just, I'm like a little overwhelmed with where we are already, and it doesn't even include 2 contracts. And it doesn't include any of the additional warrant articles. So for the flip side here for the select board, what is their process right now going through the budget and the warrant articles and everything? What has happened? I don't know how you guys.
Yeah, well, since I've been a selectman, it's been a little convoluted, and it's getting clearer and clearer as we go. Just in time for me to leave, it'll be perfect. Right now, that's why we're here, so we aren't requiring everybody to come to the selectmen's meeting, to go to 2 meetings and try to explain all that. And then the process is, we have to address the warrant articles, and we have to, I'm not sure what the deadlines are in terms of we want to hear obviously what the budget committee's opinions are on all those items, and then we have a deadline that we have to.
Can you kind of give us a timeline too, so we know what timeline we need to meet?
So I'm gonna work backwards.
Okay.
So we have a plan at this point, budget bond hearing on January 21st. The last day for petition warrant articles and CBA warrant articles to be submitted and reviewed, January 14th.
So somewhere between the 14th and the 21st, the selectmen have to meet, and the budget committee, because you don't have a final one either,
Right.
to weigh in on whether, vote on whether what we support or don't support.
And I'd really like it before then, because I'm the one that has to put the stuff
Well, how come
together.
before then, if you got the 14th to submit?
But before, if you can meet on the ones that the town wants to sponsor for warrant articles, I at least can get those done. The petition warrant articles, those have to be put on exactly how they are written.
Yeah, but we still should be voting on whether we
Right.
support it or not.
Right.
And if there was a petition warrant article, we'd probably hear about it,
We would
We
hope.
would hopefully hear about it, weeks in advance, or they would have attended meetings.
The airport, is that going to be a budget?
I've asked for them to come, and I gave them a couple of days. I have not heard back from them. But I believe there's,
But didn't we make it last year it was a warrant article, right?
yes, it was a
I
town
think
sponsor.
I think that it'd be a mistake to put it in the budget now after the
Right.
people had an opportunity to vote last year and voted it down, I think.
Is it going to be a petition warrant article, or is it going to
I
be
think
a
it's gonna- I think it's
selectmen's?
going to be a selectmen's warrant.
Okay, that's all I wanted to
Yeah.
know on that.
Yeah, the amount's $6,200.
And all of you got the letter from Rotaback? You saw that? Okay,
Yes,
so
thank you.
you're aware of that.
Is that public knowledge kind of thing? Is that
I believe so.
maybe share it?
I think you can share, and then when we do talk about the warrant articles, we can definitely speak to that at the time, so it's also on, being recorded, so.
At this point, we have the selectmen going over the budget there and reviewing it and hopefully saying whether they support it or not on January 13th.
Okay, so I think that's my question right now, and that's why I'm saying, I'm, having a little bit difficulty with the potential of 4.7 increase on just the regular operating budget, which does not include salary increases for the union workers, because that's substantial increase already.
But that's a warrant article, though, right?
It is a warrant article, but I mean, with some years, it's all tucked away in the budget because it's already been approved the previous year with a warrant article.
Right.
This year, we already have 4.42%, and it doesn't include salary increases for the union
Or
workers.
equipment purchases, the first year lease payments, if they get approved on the warrant article, or road improvements, or
All of that, we don't have those warrant articles, and combined, that's gonna be incredible. And I mean, so I'm kind of also looking at this year, and we don't have our tax rate set yet, do we? So we really don't even know where we're at on that specifically yet, do we?
Yep, no, not until once we get notified, we want to schedule a work session and the board will then, determine the use of
So that-
funds.
So that's a little bit, it's in there. And then we, the expended, excuse me, that one's a hard one, fund balance, how much, if they're going to be using it, we're pretty low on that. We really don't have a lot of fund balance to tap into. And so there's all of these pieces that really come together that we really don't have all those pieces yet to really form, but we're already at 4.42%, which to me is high at this point without all those other components coming together. So I didn't know if the select board was going to go through this and make some adjustments. I know it's kind of back and forth on this, but I didn't know if you were making any recommendations towards the budget to begin with.
I don't know either.
Okay.
Until we get to that point, I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, I think what the work done here by the budget committee is very important, and we'll be looking for opinions from the budget committee as well. I mean, obviously, we're just going through the exercises here, so, but I can't, I can't speak for the whole board anyways, but I don't know what.
I just didn't know if you had a work session plan that you were going to go over this.
Well, I was going to ask that question. I just found out that we're going to hopefully on the 13th, you said?
That's what I was told.
Is that at a regular selectmen's meeting? Normally we do that at a work session.
Well, we were going to try to get something scheduled. I had written down the meeting you had before the final, say, posting of the budget bond hearing and the petition warrant articles. I had the date as your last selectmen's meeting before that, because I'm like, this is the final date that we'll have to kind of get.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the answer to your question is that when we do this and how we do this, I guess we haven't really worked it out yet.
See, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because we not only have
You need
this
to get us,
budget.
you have to get us your opinions on it as well.
Yeah, and we always appreciate if you've made adjustments to know those, well, whether it's up or down, we appreciate getting that information as soon as possible, because we have to go through this. We not only have to go through the town side, we also have to go through the school side, and that's getting delayed. It's been delayed and delayed, and it's kind of a combination of things. So if we're 4.42% up on this side, what are we on the other side? And then we have, there's just a lot.
I guess
I'm overwhelmed.
I guess I question what the process, the expectations of the process would be on. From a selectman standpoint, I feel like we're the last step. So I don't think we should be making changes then for you to review it and then come back to us for us to review it again. I'm looking for guidance from the budget committee on what your recommended changes are, and then we would ultimately make our recommendation of what the changes are, and then the budget goes forward, we either with the support or not of the budget and the selectmen.
I mean, I understand what you're saying about it, but sometimes you may make some revisions.
Yeah.
And, if you do make revisions, just to let us know as soon as possible on certain ones.
Do you have a example throwing out there? Do you want us to look for 100, 150,000 in reductions if we can go through everything with a fine-tooth comb and
maybe
cut out some of those things that people are requesting?
I guess maybe our homework would be what, Jim? Because you've been on this.
Yeah.
And Dan.
I mean, usually we'll kind of go through it, compare past years, and, see what's changed. I mean, obviously the 4.4% is accounted for heavy in one section or not. I'm kind of also in the back of my mind, I'm worried about a lot of the equipment that's failing or is down. That's a big number, especially looking at the DPW spreadsheet. And so I'm kind of curious how that's all going to play in. And if we use unexpended funds to offset the tax rate and the warrant articles passed, then we just carry that over to next year, and it goes up. So I guess I'm more of we have unexpended funds to use it in areas where we need the help. That sort of thought. Because if we're financing equipment that we need, then we're paying, we're paying for the loan or the lease. So it's not the best use of money, but I understand keeping taxes. I mean, I like to see a flat line. I mean, I'll go up a little bit, but, you know,
Well,
I pay what I paid last year. You know, just, yeah, because that's my budget, but I understand that, you know, sometimes service increases or equipment needs to be replaced.
For many years now, I've been here almost 20 years. When I very first came, a lot of the equipment was bought all one time. You know, not a big chunk, but if we needed a truck, we didn't finance it. We had a warrant article, the taxpayers paid for it all that year instead of financing it. Well, of course, we come to the point of a big budget cut, plus we had the Trans-Canada loan come up, which was close to $500,000 a year. We stopped buying things and paying for them all in one year because we were trying to squeeze in those other things, the budget cut plus the that loan payment, bond payment. And once we started doing that, we haven't flipped back because we're still making that payment.
We impact other years, future years then.
Yes.
And see, I think that's kind of a dangerous cycle in some ways because you really don't know what the next year's going to bring, you know, but you've already impacted it.
It did.
And I would say that's something to keep in mind with, the town has been carrying that $500,000 a year of debt. And like Jim saying, the equipment has suffered. But as we get back into an equipment cycle, the tax rate isn't going to be as, well, I don't think it'll be impacted really because it'll fit in underneath that debt that we've been carrying all along. And that is the reason that the vehicle cycle is
Everything was postponed. You know, things were done to try to keep the tax rate down and just leg along.
I'm just trying to like maybe start a new way of doing things and how do we transition? And, you know, so going back to this 4.4% and also asking you what of the warrant articles, which of the warrant articles have been included in this number here from, you know,
that carried forward.
And are there any one-time expenses that are coming out? And I mean, which ones are they?
I think there's one, and I pointed that out when we were talking about it in the fire department.
I was hoping for more.
I know. There's a little bit of debt I think that was paid off, but there's the only real one-time purchase that we did in last year's budget was the door repairs at the fire department. And now we have door repairs we need to do at the police department.
So we have some of the proposed warrant articles. We don't have the information on it, but take a good look at them. Go through your budget again, start taking a good look, highlight the areas that you have questions about, or, you know, if you think 4.4 is fine, then just accept 4.4, but you still have union contracts that are coming forward. And I can't, if there was a placeholder on the union contracts, how much would that increase the?
I don't dare say.
Yeah, you can't say, actually. I shouldn't have asked you that, because then you can be accused of unfair labor practices and stuff. So anyways, I'm just a little overwhelmed here, so if any of you can, you know, go through there and find areas that you have questions about, please do. I think that is really critical. I mean, we're down to the wire now, that we really have to start making some decisions or recommendations and have deeper discussions on this budget. So
when you were asking one-time expenditures, were you just asking about the budget, or were you asking about the whole warrant articles?
All the warrant articles.
Okay, there are more that are one-time, and a lot of those come back year after year.
Well, I mean, like an example would be transfer station to Hawker.
Right.
So
I mean, that's
$60,000
yeah.
discount. And On that, I don't think transportation has any warrant articles this year.
They'll have the warrant article to use their fund balance. But we will be having a warrant article to switch them from a special revenue fund to a revolving revenue fund, which will help in the future.
Right, that's not creating additional tax burden, it's just restructuring the way that we budget.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about those warrant articles, but like something that we actually expensed taxpayer money for.
I would say there's quite a few, so if we went through these, but for example, road work, that's gonna be something that we have every year.
That's every year.
Yeah.
I mean, and it should be, it
That's why I felt it
should be.
should be part of the budget, it shouldn't be a warrant.
Well,
Ultimately, I think we talked about this before, but we will play, like with this, like that we had Doug present the 10-year vehicle plan. And then we could potentially have a fund where that is set, and that could help us stabilize the tax rate for vehicle purchases for the long term. But the same thing is what we plan for the road. So instead of just saying, here's a 2 or 3 year plan, we want to be able to look 10 years out based on a road management system that uses science to say, here's where we're going to be. And the same thing, we create a reserve fund that's specifically for that, and the fund, there'd be standard contribution to the fund every year, and then the projects would come out of that. That would be a tax stabilization.
so going back to my original question, so the roads, let's see, where's the road on there? Is there anything?
I think about midway down, I saw road work.
It was crazy.
Okay, road work, 300,000. So does that go into this number here?
No.
That does not? Okay, that was where I was,
That does not go into that number at all.
okay.
If there's any balance left at the end of the year, we ask the selectmen to encumber it so it can go toward finishing up anything that's not finished,
Right.
or using it toward another road next year. That doesn't fall back into fund balance. We try to continue using that. We're allowed to encumber a warrant article for 1 more year after the year
But
is
I think what
done.
she's asking is, what articles, once they're approved, just become part of the operating budget, and that's now part of the ongoing amount that then we increase on top of that. And I would say a good indicator of that is really going to be something that occurs debt or a position. So, if, for example, there was a police officer on here, well, now that that's created,
Right.
that'll be the default budget next year.
Right.
Or if, there's a piece of equipment that's, say we're going to pay for it over 5 years, well, yeah, that's going to become part of the debt cycle, and that will be.
But if it's a one-year purchase, then it doesn't. It's a
Right.
one-time then. All right, so.
And your petition warrant articles are a once-a-year thing, unless there's a non-lapsing piece to them.
So the petition warrant articles basically came up to $136,000 on top of it, and there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, that's up to the voters, and everyone has the right to put a petition warrant article on, blah, blah, blah.
At deliberative session, there is something that could be done at deliberative session, and there's a process for it.
Jim?
Just a suggestion on the reserve funds or any of those, the funds which expenditures will come from to support a department. You might want to maybe go baby steps with it and possibly have the voters approve expenditures from there before, maybe going to where the administration or the selectmen are approving it, the expenditures. Something that, you don't trust expenditures, but if you're going to set up a reserve account or account where you can purchase things out of, I think if you go baby steps, like get the voters familiar with the fund, allow them to expend it for a couple of years, and then you can switch into something if you need to have match money.
Actually, that's one of the goals this year, is we hope to support for a small amount of dollars. We did that with the police department last year for part-time training, $1,000. This year, we're looking, maybe we'll do a small amount for equipment, establishing it, even if it's only $1,000 to $5,000, just to get it established.
What Jim, I think, is recommending is, so you could make the select board the executors, or you could make the voters at town meeting the executors.
It's just till you get the framework set up, and then the voters will feel comfortable that they have some control until they're comfortable with the plans that come out, whether it's a road improvement plan, vehicle replacement plan, or even, some of the sewer, I guess. But
We
the
actually
selectmen-
have a sewer,
But I mean, we want to keep the voters involved. and
capital
they wanna-
trust that it's very small what's in there, but we have the sewer funds we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Was it? Last week? But we have a very small capital reserve fund for sewer.
And then the other thing I was thinking was the unexpended funds. That would be a good spot, or is where I would put my money to keep those funds.
Like the
If you
school
start
bus.
off, yeah.
Like the school bus.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
can't
That's the
put-
model I guess I was thinking was, because then your department heads are looking, do I really need that, or would I prefer to have that money go into the equipment fund? It kind of keeps.
We can't put it in without voter approval.
Right, and
Well-
it'd be like the reserve accounts that the school sets up. If there's X amount of dollars at the end of the year, 60,000 goes into whatever.
We would do it by warrant article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a their
Oh, is
warrant
it?
article.
Okay.
Yeah, that is their warrant
Yeah,
article.
just a suggestion.
Yeah. So anyways, anything else? Thank you, everyone. So I guess we're on for next week.
Are we gonna talk about December 3rd?
And then December 3rd, I don't know if we send it, just an email to you, or we can just see if we want to skip it or reschedule.
Do you want to, so Andrew has a conflict of scheduling on the 3rd, but
Or we just need that.
What if I tried to get like the airport to come in
I
and
won't be here the 3rd.
any of the other agencies that might want to attend?
do you want to hear the airport?
I'd like to, but you
Okay,
can't hold
well-
everything up for me.
I didn't know if because we have a school meeting on, I hate to do this to you, school meeting on that Wednesday, right, on the 4th. Do we just want to say Thursday?
That works better for me.
Can we do a Thursday then?
I'll be
I mean, I
really
need to
late.
So
do
you're talking
that.
about moving the 3rd to the
Yeah.
5th?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for me.
Does that work for everybody? High roller here. When Steve's gone, what else do you guys want to do? You're not going to be here?
I might not be. I have to see if supposed to go to this training, but I just think it's really critical. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. But let's try it on the 5th anyways, and we'll just work around on issues that have a big discussion about
So-
the budget in general.
So I can nail that down, that change to the
Yeah,
5th?
yes.
Thank you.
I want to make sure, is there any recommendation that you want to direct, the committee wants to direct to Andrew and I at this
I don't
time?
think we have it at this time, and so maybe that would be the 5th. Maybe that's where we really go through a lot of the things and get a general consensus here and make recommendation. That should give you plenty of time to,
There is a meeting next Tuesday, right?
there is a meeting next Tuesday. And then the 5th, really, maybe the budget committee. So you need to, can you be here on the 5th?
Yes, so that's canceling the 3rd and moving.
Yes, yes. So anyhow, you and I will talk, and then I'll send out information to, maybe the 5th will really go through the budget with a fine tooth comb, and we'll have a general sense probably from the school because they're coming in on the 4th, and we can see what their overall picture is maybe on that, because it all is working together, so.
All right, have they talked about any warrant article for a proposed school or?
They have not altogether. I know that Ann, the chair, was asked if she was going to bring something forward, and she said yes. But whether or not that happens, I don't know. That was more of her general idea. I don't know if the school board itself has voted on it, so. I have
So
no
that's
idea.
whatever they have is pretty aggressive
Pardon?
pretty aggressive marketing campaign between. For like 2
I don't
months,
know. I think it's pretty tough to, anyways.
I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything, I know. That's
Somebody would say something. Okay.
So I think their marketing campaign is usually like a deliberative session, but that doesn't really get things done. So, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.